Nell grabbed the chair nearest her and began the process of brushing off the worst of the spilled breakfast. Sammy's snacks had been packed all morning, but the rush had finally died down. A few customers from the Washerman Dry might pop in for a quick bite, but other than that the cafe wouldn't see much action on a day like this. Easter was still 2 weeks away. Down North Parade to the pier in the tacky heart of Skegness, most businesses would still be closed or on reduced winter hours, although the arcade would fill up after school let out. Some of the kids would stop in to ruin their supper with a bag of chips on the way home, but Nell would be long gone by then. She turned back toward the kitchen with a tray of salt and peppers to refill. Sabina was taking advantage of the break to sort cutlery and have a chat with one of their regulars, Sean. He came in a few times a week to play chess, though Nell couldn't understand why here, of all places. "Oi, Nell, look sharp," Sabina said. Nell glanced up. A bear of a man stood in the doorway letting in cold air. He was bleeding from at least 3 places she could see. Sean had faded further back into the corner than seemed possible, his chin tucked as he trained his gaze on the board in front of him. Nell racked her brain for a name and came up with Lewis. He took a step toward her, but she held her ground. "Bobby sent me," he grunted. "Said you helped his guys out before?" "You got cash?" Nell asked. "Christ, he's bleeding," said Sabina. "Yeah, I can see that." "Bobby's covering me," said Lewis. Nell narrowed her eyes. "Cash up front's the deal. He knows that." "Take it up with him," Lewis said. He wiped at a gash across his face with a dirty sleeve. She took a more careful inventory of his injuries and then turned to the other waitress. "Will you be all right in here if I take my break?" "Maybe we should just call an ambulance. Or the cops," Sabina said. "Fuck that," said Lewis. Nell shook her head. "I can handle him." She reached around the counter and grabbed her bag. "Really?" Sabina didn't bother to hide her skepticism. "I think so. I know who's holding his leash, at least. Let me know if it gets busy again. Oh, and hey," she turned at the door, "if my aunt shows up, try to keep her out front, okay? She doesn't exactly know about this." She waved her hand in Lewis's general direction. "Your second job? She'd kill you if she found out." Nell snorted. "Yeah." She swung the counter up and gestured for the man to follow her into the back. "I've seen you somewhere," Lewis said. "You train over at Studio Gym?" "Yeah." She pushed him ahead of her into its large storage closet and gestured for him to take a seat on the stepladder. "Take off your coat." She pulled out a pair of nitrile gloves and studied the deepest wound on his arm. Grabbing his chin, she tilted his head back so she could get a better look at the cut on his cheek. "What the hell happened? These are knife wounds." "Something like that." "I'd hate to see the other guy," she said. He grunted in agreement. Yeah, he would. In the confines of the closet, she couldn't escape the cloying scent of liquored sweat. He must be a heavy drinker, but he seemed sober enough at the moment. He'd glazed over once he was off his feet, in shock maybe. Nell left him examining his bloody knuckles as she ducked into the kitchen to grab clean towels and a pitcher of water. A small, reasonable part of her considered phoning the police, but Lewis worked for Bobby the Bear and Thomas, and Nell wasn't about to draw his fury down on her own head. Nell had started to stitch and fix at the bare-knuckle boxing matches Bobby presided over. She kept her head down and her hands busy since the gig paid well, and she needed the cash. It also meant she could actually make use of the paramedic training she received back home in Virginia. It took longer than expected to clean and bandage Lewis up, and she scowled when she caught sight of the clock. She finished wrapping the last cut across his forearm and stood, pulling the gloves off with a practiced snap. "I need to get back," she said. "If you keep the bandages clean, you should be fine." Lewis pushed himself up. It was clear now that the adrenaline had left his system. He was hurting. "Got anything for the pain, Doc?" he asked. "I don't do pills," she replied curtly. "There's a pharmacy up the road." He squinted down at her. "Got a $5 then?" "You owe me, not the other way around." "You think Bobby shirks on his debts? Man runs this town with my help." "With your help, huh? If he says he'll pay, he'll pay." Sabina poked her head through the door from the kitchen. "Nell, I need some help out here." "I'm coming," Nell called, taking advantage of the opportunity to shove Lewis toward the door. He groaned as she edged him out and slammed the door soundly in his face.